Hey guys, and welcome back. My name is Miss Danielson, and today I'm taking you through a lesson on number lines and rounding to place value. First, we'll go through a lesson including some examples, and then I'll leave you with a practice exercise with the answers taken up at the end. Before we start today's lesson, let's just quickly recap what we learned last lesson about how we round to a given place value. First step is you need to find the digit that's in that given place value. I find it helps to circle it, or I've been highlighting them for you. Then look at the digit to the right of that place value, and if that number is less than 5, it's not big enough to round your value up. So all digits to the left will stay the same, and all digits to the right will become zeros. But if that digit to the right is 5 or higher, that is including 5, the digit in our specified place value, that digit that we circled or highlighted, will round up 1. All the other digits to the left will stay the same, while all the digits to the right become zeros. Let's have a look at the examples we saw again last lesson. If you joined us last lesson, or maybe you want to hit pause and try them again for yourself before we take up the answers. Here are answers for example 1, answers for example 2, answers to example 3. Now let's have a look at number lines and how we can use them to show rounding. Round 447 to the nearest 10. Again, I've used a different color to clearly show that this 4 here is the digit that's in the tens position. So my first step is to set up my number line and take note of the place value that we're rounding to and start on our number line by labeling the largest and smallest value which I might round to. So if I'm rounding to the nearest 10, the smallest value I could have in the tens position is keeping that number the same, 40. So 440. And the biggest number I could round to the nearest 10, would be making this 4 one higher. So make that a 5, a 50. So 450. So there's my number line, and that's my lower bound and my upper bound. I need to do a little bit more detail on this number line though. Next, I want to make sure that my number line includes 10 spaces between the upper bound, that's the 450, and the lower bound, that's the 440. And make my middle of my number line really clear. So let's just show that I've done that correctly. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the middle. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So when you draw this, you measure exactly 10 centimeters, or if you want to make it a little bit bigger, so extra spacing, make it 20 centimeters. So you're either doing one line every 1 centimeter, that's every 2 squares, or one line every 2 centimeters, that's every 4 squares. Decide before you start drawing that line how big you're going to make it, remembering that you need to split it into 10 parts. Now, the middle of my number line is perfectly between the lower bound and the upper bound. It's easiest to start by looking at your lower bound, 440, and think next to the tens position, which I'm rounding to, the middle value would be 5. The middle of 10, half of 10 is 5. So the number in the middle of my number line is the same as the lower boundary, but next to the place value we're rounding to, we'll put a 5, so 445. Next, mark where your value appears on your number line. Is it above or below the halfway mark? Remember that this number line was split into 10 equal spaces, and I counted them for you. This is 440. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 445. That means each of these spaces must be jumping by ones. So this would be 441, 442, 443, 444, 445, 446, 447. That's my number. So I've labeled it on my number line, and I can clearly see that I've passed the halfway mark to mark my value, which means that when I round the number 447 to the nearest 10, it's either going to round to 440 or 450, and I can clearly see it's closer to 450. So that's my answer. 447 rounded is approximately 450 to the nearest 10. Remember to use this symbol, and to be really clear, let's write what place value we've rounded to. Now, when I rounded to the nearest 10, it wasn't exactly correct. Notice that 450 is 3 more than 447. So my rounding error was 3. That doesn't mean I made a mistake rounding. It's definitely closer to 450 than it is to 440, but it's not exact. Let's try some more examples. You're going to want to write these down. Remember to set up your number lines with 10 spaces in between them. Maybe you're going to do them 10 centimeters long. Maybe you're going to do them 20 centimeters long. This time we're going to round 28,348 to the nearest 1,000. Then we're going to round that same number, 28,348, to the nearest 100. And then we'll round 28,348 to the nearest 10. Now I'm helping you out with this by highlighting the place values we're rounding to, the thousands, the hundreds, and the tens. But if you need to revise place values to be able to do that for yourself, remember to check the link down below. Let's get started. So 28,348 to the nearest 1,000. First, I'll label the lower bound and upper bound of my number line. The lower bound will just be 28,000. The upper bound is changing that place value to make it one higher, so 29,000. We need to now label our middle value, halfway between 28,000 and 29,000. Just look at the lower bound, and next to the place value we're rounding to, let's put a 5. So 28,500. Now we need to place our original value on our number line where it belongs. Check your scale. If this is 28,000, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In those 5 spaces, I've gone up 500. I must be counting by hundreds. 28,100, 28,200, 28,300, 28,400, 28,500. I'm counting by hundreds. So where does 28,348 go? This is 28,100, 28,200, 28,300. A bit higher than this, but not as high as 28,400. Not even past halfway, because this would be 28,350. So a little bit below halfway. 28,348. And looking at our number line, it is definitely below the halfway mark. So it's definitely going to round down to 28,000. 28,348 is approximately equal to 28,000 when we round to the nearest 1,000. Note our symbol here, it's approximately equal, it's not exact. There is a slight rounding error, not a mistake that we made, but an inaccuracy when we rounded 348 less than it actually should be. On to rounding to the nearest 100. So 28,348, same value as we had above, but this time I'm highlighting the hundreds position for you. That should be making things easy for you, so remember to do that for yourself. Identify the place value you're rounding to, and then set up your number line to show the lower boundary and the upper boundary. The lower boundary will keep that 3 the same, so that's going to be 28,300. The upper boundary, we made that digit 1 higher, so 28,400. And then we mark the middle of our number line. Halfway between 28,300 and 28,400 is 28,300 with a 5 next to it, 28,350. Now looking at our number line, it's split into 10 equal parts. If it took me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those parts to get from 28,300 to 28,350, 5 of these spaces are worth 50. Each of these spaces must be worth 10. And where does our original value belong? Let's see that again. 28,310, 20, 30, 40. This is beyond 40, but not quite at 50, but quite close to 50, definitely past halfway. 28,348. It's quite close to that middle value, but it's still below the middle value. That means our value is going to round down to 28,300. So 28,348 is approximately equal to 28,300 to the nearest hundreds. Again, remember there's a rounding error. This is not exact. That's why I've used this symbol. And that rounding error is 48. Our rounded answer is 48 less than it should be. Next, rounding to the nearest 10, 28,348 to the nearest 10. I've highlighted the tens position for you, so I know the lower boundary is going to have that tens position stay the same, and the digits in the lower place values will become zeros. 28,340. The upper boundary will round that value up 1, and the digits to the right will become zeros as well. 28,350. Then we mark the middle of our number line, halfway between 28,340 and 28,350. It's just our lower boundary with a 5 next to the place value we're rounding. So 28,345. Now, this should be relatively easy to figure out our schema because there are 10 spaces on our number line and our lower boundary is 10 less than our upper boundary. So we must be counting by ones. Let's check that. 28,341, 28,342, 28,343, 28,344, 28,345. Yes, that's how we get to the middle, counting by ones. Let's keep going until we get to 28,348. So 28,346, 28,347, 28,348. It's going to be exactly here. So that is definitely past the midpoint. It is definitely closer to our upper bound. So to the nearest 10, I would say that 28,348 rounds approximately to 28,350 when we round to the nearest 10. What was our rounding error this time? We're really quite close. Our rounding error is only 2. Now, before we get into the practice, let's make sure that you feel ready to do this. Success criteria for our practice exercise. You need to understand the meaning of rounding to place value. You need to understand the rounding error, which is caused by rounding a value, that slight inaccuracy. You need to be able to round the same value to different degrees of accuracy to produce different answers. And you need to be able to place numbers on a scaled number line. In order to do this, one thing I have not yet demonstrated is making neat use of a pencil, ruler, and squared paper. Let me know if I need to help you to do that. Lining that up really nicely with the squares on your page, making sure that your line is perfectly on top of the lines of your page. Let's see how accurately we can do this. So onto our practice exercise now. First, I'll explain the questions to you, then you can hit pause and you can try them, and the answers will come up at the end. First, I want you to round each of the following numbers to the nearest 1,000, 100, and 10. So in each case, there are 3 answers. For A, I want you to round this number to the nearest 1,000. Then I want you to round this number to the nearest 100. Then I want you to round this number to the nearest 10. Same thing for B, and for C and D. For question 2, I want you to demonstrate all of the above answers on number lines. So you're going to need 3 number lines for each of these. That'll be 12 number lines, 10 centimeters long, 20 if you prefer. Next, the number of students in Spain achieving a grade A on an exam was 3,742. Just like we've done above, I want you to round this number to the nearest 1,000, 100, and 10. But we're then going to apply our answers. Think about what they mean. Jamie is a Spanish student who scored an A and wants to make that sound rare and special. What value would Jamie choose to round to? C. The Spanish Minister of Education wants to make it sound like a lot of Spanish students scored an A grade. Which place value would the minister choose to round to? Would the minister want to round to the thousands, the hundreds, or the tens? Go ahead and hit pause now and give that a try. Remember to take your time to set those number lines up really nice and neatly. And hit play when you're ready to see the answers. I hope you took a chance to hit pause, because here comes your answers. For question 1, rounding each of the following values to the nearest 1,000, 100, and 10. Question 2, showing this on a number line, I can clearly see that my value is below the midpoint, so it rounds down to 54,000. Here it's above the midpoint, so it rounds up to 54,400. And here it's below the midpoint, so it rounds down to 54,380. For B, I can clearly see that this value is above the midpoint, so it rounds up to 38,000. It's above the midpoint for the hundreds as well, so it rounds up to 37,800. And it's above the midpoint for the tens, so it rounds up to 37,800 again. Just by chance, that rounded to the same value whether we rounded to the nearest 100 or the nearest 10. That's an interesting thing to note in future. For C, to the nearest 1,000, it was below the midpoint, so it rounded down to 13,000. For the nearest 100, it was above the midpoint, so we rounded up to 13,500. And for the nearest 10, it was exactly at the midpoint, but as we say, 5 or higher, we round up. So this is 13,460. For D, for the nearest 1,000, below the midpoint, so we round down to 28,000. For the hundreds, it's above the midpoint, so we round up to 28,300. And for the tens, it's below the midpoint, so we round down to 28,270. Question 3, rounding again to the thousands, hundreds, and tens, and then applying our rounded values. They are all correctly rounded, although we know that they're not all perfectly accurate. Still, if Jamie wants her score to seem rare and special, she wants it to seem like not many people got an A grade. So which one's the lowest? 3,700. She would probably choose to round the exact number of students to the nearest 100 to make it seem like not very many people scored an A grade. That produces a rounding error of 42. It's not a lie. It's not incorrect. It's just not perfectly accurate. The Spanish Minister of Education, though, would want to make this number seem big to make it seem like Spanish students are doing very well on these exams. So which of these numbers show a bigger number of students? The thousands. When we round to the thousands, the answer gets bigger because we round up to 4,000. This answer is correct. It's not a lie, but it's not perfectly accurate. There is a slight rounding error here of 258 students, but he's trying to make his numbers look good. We do that a lot in math. It doesn't always have to be perfectly accurate. Sometimes we use the numbers to meet our needs. So Jamie looks pretty good and rare, 1 out of 3,700. And the Spanish minister looks pretty good because he's got a good big group of kids that are getting A grades. Now, I hope you found this lesson and these exercises helpful. I hope I made you think on that last one a little bit. If I've left anything a little bit unclear, please leave me a comment down in the comment section so I can clarify it for you. Otherwise, keep practicing and I will see you next time. Bye.